Iran has fired 400 ballistic missiles at U.S. bases across 6 countries. Tonight, we reveal what Washington knew beforehand. The FBI's Iran counterintelligence unit was fired days before the war started. Tonight, we expose who gave that order.
Smoke rising over Abu Dhabi. Explosions rattling the Palm Jumeirah. The U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain struck by an Iranian Shahid drone. Not a simulation, not a war game. This is happening in real time, right now. And the speed at which it detonated should terrify you, because what you are watching is not a limited engagement. It is not a surgical strike with a clean exit. What you are watching is the entire Middle Eastern security architecture coming apart, and the consequences are already crashing into your world faster than any single headline is telling you. The Strait of Hormuz is threatened with closure. Oil prices are spiking by the hour. 3 U.S. fighter jets went down in a friendly fire incident over the Gulf. Airports in Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE are shut. Over 40,000 American troops stationed across the region are inside the blast radius of Iranian missiles right now. Iran has fired over 400 ballistic missiles and nearly 1,000 drones at Gulf Arab states in less than 72 hours. This does not look like a controlled military operation. It looks like a region-wide war detonating in real time. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how this started, how the intelligence was ignored, and how a diplomatic breakthrough that was 48 hours away was annihilated by a decision made in Washington. The key fact that every major network is burying is that Iran had agreed during back-channel talks in Oman never to stockpile enriched uranium. A major breakthrough, according to Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi. And the U.S. attacked anyway. Why the people in power made that call, and why the world you're living in today is measurably more dangerous than the one you woke up in 6 days ago. Imagine you are in a heated dispute with a neighbor. The dispute has gone on for years. Lawyers are involved. It is expensive and exhausting for everyone on the street. Then, one morning, a neutral party, someone both of you actually respect, calls you and says, "We are almost there. Your neighbor just agreed to the key term. Give me 48 hours. You hang up the phone, and then you walk over and burn your neighbor's house down anyway, while his family is inside. Then you are shocked, genuinely shocked, when he throws a brick through your window, then another through your car, then another through the houses of every person on the block who is vaguely associated with you. Is that strategy? That is not strategy. That is arson dressed up as foreign policy. And now the entire street is on fire. Was that worth it? Hold that thought, because that is exactly what the Trump administration just did with the Omani-mediated nuclear negotiations. Here is the binary question I want you to sit with. When a diplomatic deal is 48 hours from completion and a president still chooses military strikes, is that a decision based on security, or is that a decision based on something else entirely? Drop your answer in the comments, because how you answer that question determines whether you believe what happened next was unavoidable or entirely manufactured. Let us rewind the clock, because the speed of this conflict has buried the sequence of events that actually matter. For weeks leading up to February 28, 2026, indirect negotiations between Iran and the United States were being mediated by Oman in both Muscat and Geneva. On the morning of the strikes, Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi publicly declared that peace was within reach and that Iran had agreed to never stockpile enriched uranium. Language that the Council on Foreign Relations described as a significant concession that went further than previous Iranian positions. Al-Busaidi was not hedging. He used the phrase "major breakthrough." Hours later, the bombs fell on Tehran. According to reporting from the Institute for the Study of War's special report published on February 28, 2026, the U.S. and Israel launched what they called a coordinated campaign to topple the Islamic Republic. The strikes did not target nuclear facilities alone. They targeted the entire Iranian leadership structure. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed in an airstrike, along with 49 senior Iranian officials in a single wave. Defense Council Secretary Ali Shamkhani, IRGC Commander Major General Mohammad Pakpour, Defense Minister Brigadier General Aziz Nasirzadeh, and Iran's intelligence chief were all assessed as killed within the first hours. The IDF targeted hundreds of missile launcher sites in West Iran. The IRGC's naval frigate Jazeera was struck. This was not a warning shot. This was a decapitation. And the Iranian response, which came within the same news cycle, was not restrained. The IRGC declared that all U.S. military assets across the entire Middle East were now legitimate targets, and it meant every word. Receipt number 1. The FBI's Iran counterintelligence unit was gutted days before the strikes began. According to CNN's reporting from March 3, 2026, members of the FBI's specialized counterintelligence unit that monitored and disrupted Iranian threats inside the United States were fired. Not reassigned, fired. Reportedly because they had been involved in the 2022 investigation of classified materials found at Mar-a-Lago. The Council on Foreign Relations laid out the danger directly. The expertise, knowledge, and institutional memory assembled on counterterrorism and homeland security over the past 25 years could have been lost in recent workforce cuts. The United States launched a war against the world's most sophisticated state sponsor of terrorism and simultaneously fired the people trained to stop that terrorism from reaching American soil. That is not a coincidence. That is institutional self-sabotage dressed up as loyalty testing. Receipt number 2. The Strait of Hormuz closure warning and what it does to your wallet. On February 28th, Iran officially stated it would shut the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which nearly 20% of the world's oil passes every single day. According to UK maritime trade operations, cited by Reuters, sea vessels operating in the Gulf received active closure warnings that same day. The ripple effect is not theoretical. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE all depend on that strait to export their oil. When it tightens, energy prices detonate globally. The Council on Foreign Relations has noted that Iran possesses a significant inventory of short-range ballistic missiles and cheaply manufactured suicide drones capable of targeting Gulf oil infrastructure for months. Every dollar your gas rises at the pump is a direct bill from this decision. And the fact that this was foreseeable, that every Gulf security analyst had war-gamed this exact scenario, tells you everything about who made this call and why. The answer is they knew and they went anyway. Receipt number 3. The THAAD depletion crisis no one is telling you about. According to CNN's reporting from March 2, 2026, during Israel's 12-day conflict with Iran in June 2025, just 8 months ago, the U.S. burned through approximately a quarter of its entire THAAD interceptor stockpile. The U.S. has 7 THAAD systems globally. It used 2 of them defending Israel in 2025. Now those same systems are being called on to defend Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE simultaneously, while Iran deploys what Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi himself described as a mosaic defense. Decentralized cells using mobile launchers disguised as civilian trucks, firing in waves that are deliberately designed to overwhelm and exhaust missile defense systems. Farzan Nademi, a senior fellow at the Washington Institute specializing in Iranian security, told CNN that Iran can sustain the current rate of fire on Gulf nations for approximately 1 month. 1 month. And the fact that the U.S. entered this war with already depleted interceptor stockpiles, firing blind into a country that had spent 2 decades studying American military failures in Afghanistan and Iraq, tells you everything about how seriously the exit strategy was mapped. The answer is it was not. If this breakdown is connecting dots you have not seen assembled anywhere else, you're already ahead of most people watching this unfold. Hit subscribe right now. This conflict is accelerating faster than any single outlet can track, and I'm going to keep breaking it down every single day. You need to be here when the next piece drops. Now here is the part most people are missing. Most governments, when facing an adversary with Iran's missile and drone capability, would prioritize degrading that capability before triggering a full retaliatory response. You hit the launchers first, quietly, covertly, over weeks or months before you announce a war. The Trump administration did the opposite. It launched a very public, maximum impact decapitation strike, which Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi confirmed Iran had anticipated and pre-delegated authority to its military units to respond to independently, without waiting for central command orders. Araghchi told Al Jazeera explicitly, We've had 2 decades to study defeats of the U.S. military to our immediate east and west. We've incorporated lessons accordingly. Iran's military units have turned independent and isolated, operating on general instructions given in advance. That is not improvisation. That is a pre-built, autonomous retaliation architecture that was activated the moment the first American bomb landed. Most analysts expected restraint based on Iran's past behavior. Iran deployed that expectation as a strategic weapon. The asymmetry is this. The U.S. is fighting a centralized campaign against a deliberately decentralized enemy, and decentralized enemies do not break when you cut off the head. So what does this actually mean for you? Your gas prices are already moving, and they are not going to stop. The Strait of Hormuz is not a metaphor. It is the physical artery through which a massive portion of the world's energy supply flows, and it is now a war zone. Your retirement account is tied to markets that price in geopolitical risk by the hour. And right now, that risk is being priced upward every day this conflict continues without an off-ramp. If you have a family member in uniform, they're in or near a region where Iranian missiles struck U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Iraq in a single 24-hour window. Your grocery bill is linked to fuel and freight costs that move when oil moves. Tourism, air travel, global supply chains, all of it is suspended or disrupted across the Gulf right now. And the Council on Foreign Relations has directly warned that Iran may target high-visibility events on American soil this summer, including World Cup games and the 250th anniversary of American independence, as retaliatory strikes. Once the threat environment escalates to that level, it does not simply reverse because a ceasefire is announced. Those vulnerabilities embed themselves, and they do not come back. Where does this go from here? There are 3 realistic paths, and none of them are clean. The first is a managed off-ramp. Back-channel communications, likely through Oman again if Tehran allows it, produce some form of ceasefire framing where both sides can claim partial victory. Iran stops the Gulf strikes. The U.S. halts offensive operations. Iran's nuclear infrastructure is damaged but not eliminated. A new Iranian leadership, possibly Khamenei's son Mojtaba, who is being positioned as successor according to the UK Parliament Library's briefing, declares the Islamic Republic has survived and resisted. Washington declares the mission accomplished. The region breathes. But make no mistake, the diplomatic framework that produced the 2015 nuclear deal, every channel that took decades to build, every mediating relationship that made off-ramps possible, all of it has been scorched. The off-ramp exists, but the road behind it is already scorched. The second path is structural regional realignment. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, states that spent hundreds of billions of dollars on American weapons precisely to deter this moment, are now under fire from both directions. A senior Gulf official told CNN that Iran has lost all goodwill from Islamic and Arab states with these strikes. But the deeper question is whether those same states are quietly beginning to recalculate the value of American security guarantees. If the U.S. dragged them into a war they explicitly asked not to happen, and now their airports are closed, their oil infrastructure is burning, and their residents are sheltering indoors, the trust equation has shifted. Once those relationships restructure towards self-sufficiency or toward other guarantors, they do not restructure back. The third path is the one nobody wants to name out loud. Iran sustains its mosaic defense for weeks. The THAAD interceptor reserves continue to deplete. A miscalculation, a drone that hits a hospital, a missile that kills 50 civilians in Riyadh, a U.S. retaliatory strike that triggers Hezbollah to fully mobilize from Lebanon, cascades the conflict beyond anyone's ability to contain. Oil supply collapses. Global markets go into free fall. American troops are killed at bases that U.S. planners did not adequately harden. And the person making real-time decisions about the most consequential military escalation since the Iraq War is the same person who, according to Today on NBC, gave conflicting messages on the same day about how long the Iran war will last, saying at one point, "I think the war is very much complete," while the missiles were still in the air. Here is what I need you to understand. The diplomatic framework that could have prevented every single casualty, Iranian, American, Gulf civilian, was not simply available. It was 48 hours from completion when it was abandoned. The Omani foreign minister had the signatures. He had the language. He had what he called a major breakthrough on uranium stockpiling. What was built, there was not just a deal. It was a last exit before a freeway with no off-ramps. What the decision-makers in Washington and Tel Aviv chose instead was not strategy. It was a spectacle dressed up as strength. And the region, and your economy, and potentially your safety are now paying the bill for that choice. History does not remember the soundbite. History remembers who was in the room when the last door closed, and who chose to blow it off its hinges instead of walking through it. What happens when Iran appoints a new supreme leader who has nothing to lose and everything to prove? What does the global oil market look like in 90 days if the Strait of Hormuz remains contested? And if the FBI's Iran counterintelligence unit was dismantled before this war started, who exactly is watching the doors right now? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe because the next chapter, the succession battle inside Iran, the THAAD stockpile crisis, the Hezbollah front in Lebanon, and the first moves of a post-Khamenei Islamic Republic, is coming fast. This story is not slowing down. Do not look away. This content is commentary and analysis for informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Consult qualified experts before making any decisions based on the information presented.